Welcome back to New World Tank Mastery, where I, Ty James, your mother's favorite video game tank, 10 years running, might I add, I bring you all things New World, especially for us tanks, how to tank dungeons and all that good things. And today, the much awaited tier list of the charms and perks that you should be using in your PvE tank gear. Now, listen up. This is going to be a two-part video. Today, we're going to do a tier list of all the different offensive and defensive perks as far as the charms are, like the Enchanted Ward 2, Blessed 2, and all those different things, right? And then this weekend, I'm also releasing my best in slot PvE tank build. And I think I have to do in that order so you guys can understand kind of like the reason why and where to start farming these charms and these perks so it can prepare you for the best in slot guide. Okay, you guys ready? Let's hop on in. I built out this little tier thingy here. It's the first time I've ever done one of these tier, I guess, guides or whatever the heck you want to call it. So we're going to start with the defensive perks. So let me pull up this thing right here. I can make it a little less big in my eyeball here so I can see. Nope, that is a little more bigger than okay, there we go. All right. So first one up is going to be Freedom 2. Okay, Freedom 2. It's going to give you reduction in the base duration of slow, stuns, and roots by 15%. Now, keep in mind, this charm can stack up to 5 times. So you can have 5 Freedom 2 charms in your gear, which would give you a 75% reduction of slow, stun, and root. If you add that to, say, a unmovable or freedom artifact, you'd be pretty much immune to any kind of CC, root, or stun. Now, PvP, very, very important. Very good perk to have. PvE, not quite as important. So, the reason why I'm putting Freedom 2 in the B tier is because we're talking specifically about PvE tanking. Okay, we're not talking about PvP tanking right now in this video. So because if you manage your block and you manage some of your other skills and abilities, you can prevent yourself from being stunned by the boss. And even then, if you've already got your taunt and you've got your threat and your aggro, getting stunned by the boss is quite less impactful compared to being stunned in PvP. Okay, so because of that, we're going to go ahead and give it a B. And let me preface this real quick. So some of these charms, not only are they going to be kind of more specific to whether you're in PvP or PvE, but some of these might also be build specific, right? And if they are build specific, I don't really want to give them an S tier rating. I'm going to save the S tier ratings for the best perks for all builds, right? So S tier, it's going to be a perk that's not only amazing, but it's going to be amazing in pretty much whatever build you put it in, versus like an A tier is going to be something that's pretty good all around for most perks, but probably best for a specific build. So that's going to be A. B is going to be just like that, an average thing. It's not bad. It's not great. If you have it, you can throw it in. It's not going to cause any harm, but it's not something you should really focus on. C tier is going to be kind of like that. I probably wouldn't put it in, but if it has it on the piece of gear, don't remove it and leave no charm at all, right? And then D would be like, don't even bother. So D for don't bother. I think that's going to be the best thing to think about. Next up is going to be Vigor. So Vigor 2, or Vigor, the charm, is a reduction in burn, bleed, and poisons by 15%. Also stackable 5 times. Okay, so also stackable 5 times. So if you were to say combine this in, especially in PvP, if you were to combine this with a Jin head wrap, you'd pretty much reduce all dots completely, like by 90%, right? Now, in PvE tanking, I'm going to put it up in the A, and here's why. If you're doing a specific boss, such as we'll say Typhon in Hive of Gorgons. He does a lot of bleed damage, And the thing is if he gets empowered by sucking in some of those mobs, like the Corvids, right? That bleed tick will like 100 you to 0 super super quick. So if you can reduce the total duration of the bleed, that's less overall tick damage. So the reason why this is not going to be an S is this doesn't reduce the amount per tick of damage. So it's not like it reduces dot damage. What it does is it reduces the duration of the burn bleed. So if it's, say, 100 damage over 10 seconds, it might limit it to like 8 seconds of that dot, right? So it does in turn reduce the amount of damage. It just reduces how long it's on you. So that's why I can't really give it an S, is it's not specifically a damage mitigation charm. It's a duration charm, but it's still pretty good. Next up is going to be Invigorated 2. This is also stackable. It stacks up to 5 times. And this reduces the duration of Weaken, Disease, Exhaust, and Rend by 15%. I'm going to give that one an A. Right? So some bosses will rend you, and some things will rend you, causing you to reduce your defenses. You don't want that, right? And also the duration of Exhaust. If you get stand broken on your shield and you're exhausted, you want your stand bar to be able to recover as quickly as possible. You don't want any delay. So this charm, if you stack it, say five defensive charms with this, you're going to have a 75% a reduction of the exhaust status. Okay, same thing with disease. If you get disease put on you where your healing effectiveness is lower, this also reduces that as well. So I'm going to put it as an A, only because there are some S tier ones that I think are better and are more efficient. So if I had a choice between, hey, I've got 5 extra charm slots that are defensive charm slots, which ones am I going to put in there? Am I going to put Invigorated, or am I going to do 5 stack of an S tier? I'm probably going to go with 5 stack of an S tier. Okay, so that's why I'm giving that one an A. It's a great charm. If you have it, throw it in there. You're not going to be upset. But if you're trying to min max, it's going to be an A tier. Okay. Next up is going to be Hasted Vigor. So this one is any incoming damage over time effect is reduced by 9% per armor piece with the perk. Okay. If you get hit while under the effects of a dot, you get a 9% haste for 5 seconds. This stacks 5 times, which means if there's a dot on you, right? Any dot, burn, bleed, poison, kind of like Invigorated, right? Any burn, bleed, poison, any sort of dot effect of incoming damage, this one directly will reduce the damage by 45% if you have 5 stacks. And not only that, if you have that dot on you and you get hit, you gain a 45% haste if you have 5 of these. No matter what build you have, any damage mitigation we can get in Season 10, it's going up in S tier. We got nerfed with our damage mitigation, reductions, overall defenses as tanks in Season 10. This is a direct reduction of damage, and there's a lot of endgame content that deals dot damage. Mutations will deal dot damage. Endgame bosses do dot damage. So this is a direct reduction of damage by 45% if you have 5 stacks. Okay. Plus, it's going to give you some movement speed, so you can kind of go collect mobs that DPS and healers will run away when they pull aggro instead of bringing it to you. This allows you to catch up to that mob and grab them, and then tell your DPS and healer, stop doing that. Just bring the mob to me, please, so I can keep the aggro, right? So we're going to give Hasted Vigor an S tier. Next up is going to be Physical Aversion. Little bit more pertinent in PvP against bows or muskets, even blunderbusses. But as far as PvE is concerned, We're going to throw that down in B. If you have it on there, cool, no big deal, right? But it's not something you should really be looking to farm or try to put into your gear. It does reduce damage by 3.6%, but that's only from ranged physical attacks. There's not a whole lot of, archer mobs as bosses in New World right now. So you're not really going to be dealing with a whole lot of endgame bosses this is actually going to help reduce, right? So as far as PvE tanking is concerned, this one is going to go down into the B. And it also can only stack 5 times. So there's other options and other slots that are better. Okay, next up is Elemental Aversion. Okay, all right. So this is a 3% less damage from ranged elemental attacks, and it can stack 5 times. The base perk you get Elemental Aversion on some gear is going to be slightly better, and there's no max stacking. So the thing is there are quite a bit of ranged elemental attacks. I'm still going to say that I'm going to put this actually in A. Here's why. It's a great perk to have, and you'll see when we get into our best in slot build kind of right now that it's actually a really good perk to have. It's also really good right now for PvP. Here's why. A big thing in PvP is people getting triple attuned weapons, right? And that triple attuned weapon does some sort of elemental damage, whether it's nature, whether it's lightning, whether it's flame, it's ice, void, some sort of elemental damage, okay? And most people that are getting it are putting it on a bow, they're putting it on a musket, they're putting it on blunderbuss, all 3 of which are ranged. They're also putting it on fire staffs, right? Also ranged. They're putting it on ice gauntlets. That they're trying to find the best in slot for elemental attunement. This is a direct counter to that. It is a direct reduction of damage to that triple attunement. And right now, that triple attunement is best in slot for DPS, especially in PvP. Okay, so for PvP, this would probably go up in more of the S tier. PvE, I'm going to put it down in A because it's kind of build specific. If you have gear that already has elemental aversion in it, then you're not really going to be slotting this charm. Okay, so that's why I'm putting that in A. Great perk. But I think if there are a little bit better options when it comes to PvE tanking. Okay. Next up is going to be shirking heals. Keep in mind, we are talking about PvE tanking. Don't even bother. It only works with PvP. It does stack 5 times, but that's still only PvP. Okay. So that's going to be going down here in D because it does you no good in PvE. Okay. Pretty easy one. Avoid it because it doesn't do shit for you. Okay. Next up is Fortified. Fortified is a great. This is a great perk. Okay. And I'm going to tell you why I'm putting it in A and I'm not putting it in S. Okay. Now, what does Fortified do? Fortified doesn't give you fortification. Fortified Charm allows your Fortify that you apply to last 10% longer. Meaning, you use a skill that grants you Fortify. We'll say Accelerated Resolve on your Sword and Shield. Okay? Use Accelerated Resolve. It gives you a 10-second, we'll just use easy math. It gives you a 10-second Fortify. If you have the Fortified Charm, if you have one of them, that's 10%, it's going to last you 11 seconds. So say the cooldown on your Accelerated Resolve is 15 seconds. That means that there's really only going to be 4 seconds where you're not going to have the uptime. Now, say you put 5 stacks of this charm, it stacks 5 times, which means your Fortify will apply, or the Fortify you apply will last 10% longer times 5, so 50% longer. Okay, so you say, all right, well, Ty, that means if I have a 10-second skill that has a 15-second cooldown, if I put 5 stacks of this, it's actually going to last 15 seconds. By then, my 15-second cooldown is up. I can reapply it. True. But if you're using a weapon that, say, has refreshing move, or you're using some abilities that already give you skill cooldown reduction, then that 15-second is actually probably going to be closer to 11, maybe 10 seconds anyways. So you're already going to have an uptime on the Fortify. So maybe slotting one of these, maybe 2 in a defensive charm slot. Cool, good idea. I mean, you'll get an extra 10%, maybe 20% longer. But focusing on trying to find 5 stacks of these, I think you still have some better options that you want to stack 5 times. Just because if you already have cooldown reduction, this really isn't going to be as necessary. Okay? So that's my explanation why I have it in A. If you guys disagree, trust me, any disagreements you guys have on this tier list, put your reasoning why down in the comments. What I don't want is people go, I don't agree with it, and they don't say why. And then, not that like I care if somebody agrees or disagrees with me, like that doesn't bother me. It's more, the whole point of this is to help build up our tank community. So if you actually have a legitimate reason on why you don't believe, the tier list is accurate, or you think one perk is better than the other, put it in the comments so that maybe it's something I don't even know, and I would learn too, but the rest of the tanks that are watching this video can also learn from it. Okay, so that's all I ask is in your comments, if you believe that there's a better slot or a better spot, or where you think that should be on the tier, feel free to put it in the comments. Just kind of put in a quick little explanation. It doesn't have to be a book, but a quick explanation on why you believe that, so that everybody can make like a good educated decision on, maybe changing these, kind of thing. So next up is going to be Divine 2. So Divine 2 is stackable 5 times. And this right here is going to be SSSS+++ for PvE tanking. Here's why. The charm itself grants you 5.5% extra health from non-consumable or lifesteal healing sources. Meaning, if a healer who you're going to have as a PvE tank casts a heal on you, every stack of this is an extra 5.5% healing, which means at 5 stacks, you're going to have 27.5% increased incoming healing. So if a healer casts a 1000 HP heal on you, you are instead going to get a 1275 hit point heal just for having these slotted. So imagine heal over time. It increases that. It increases global heals done or burst heals from the healer. No matter what, any incoming heal from a source other than a consumable or life stealing, this is going to increase. So it doesn't count towards the pots, doesn't count towards your blood drinker or your life stealing, leeching, any of that. But as a tank in PvE, you will most certainly always have a healer with you. So this is a direct counter to disease. This is a direct counter to dots and things like that, because the heal over time bubbles you're going to get from your healer are increased by 27.5%. So most likely the increase in the amount of healing will actually counteract the damage done by a dot. Okay, so this is an S++ for PvE tanking. Okay, I would even venture to say for PvP, it's also going to be an S, because the only time you're really going to be a big, full-on pure tank in PvP is if you're on a team that has a healer. Otherwise, you're not really that beneficial to the team as a full tank, because you just don't do enough damage output, right? And if you have any questions about that, I did do a video on some tank mastery stuff that kind of explains our role in PvP. Okay, so for Divine, that is going to be S+++ for PvE tanking. Okay, like I would venture to say farming that as soon as you can, farming the materials to craft it, farming the drops where it drops, how to get it, trading post, put in some buy orders for dirt cheap. Hopefully somebody's desperate and they fulfill those and you get them cheap. Stack up Divine 2, because you're going to want a ton of these stacked up, so that as you get better gear or as you get things and you want to slot it in, you have it on hand and you're not going to go broke. because they are very expensive because it's S+. Okay. Next up is Alchemist Reprieve. Okay. This also stacks 5 times. Yes. So yes, we do have a dedicated healer when you're PvE tanking, but sometimes our healers may not cast on us. They're trying to keep up our DPS who are face rolling into tons of mobs, and they don't have a heal available for us, and we got to quickly use a pot. Or sometimes we're split tanking and we're trying to focus on, keeping the aggro of one set of mobs while the DPS and the healer are focusing on another set of mobs because I got to keep them separated. So the healer's having a hard time trying to manage between healing me and healing the DPS. So if I can hit a pot and I can get 35% increased healing from that pot, it's a good perk to have. It's good for like, an oh shit scenario where you're like, oh, my health is going down and I don't have a healer on me. Hit the pot, right? And here's the reason why. There's no cooldown on it. The only cooldown you're going to have is on the actual pot. So no matter which pot you use, you're getting a 7% per stack increase in the healing from that potion. Okay. So 5 of them means 35% extra healing. So every tick from, say, a serum, right, that you get is 35% increased effectiveness. So yeah, good one. I'm not going to say it's S++++, because if between the two, I would take, let me move this over here because I would say this is better than that one. I would take Blessed over the Alchemist Reprieve. If I have 5 slots available and I'm trying to choose between Divine and Alchemist Reprieve, I'm probably going to choose Divine because I know I have a dedicated healer as a PvE tank. Okay. Alchemist Reprieve, also S in PvP. I am going to do a full PvP tank breakdown of the same charms and the tier list. I just wanted to touch a little bit on some of the decision making between the two. I won't go into too much detail though. Okay. Next up is Anointed Lifesteal. B. Here's why. It does stack 5 times. 5.5% increased healing from lifesteals, which means a 27.5% increased healing from your lifesteals. Here's the problem. Although, like, a lot of you guys are going to be running Blood Drinker because it's good to have some self-sustain, I don't think that your damage output as a tank is high enough to get the main survivability of the lifesteal. Here's the other thing: is it is build specific. You not only have to have this defensive charm in, but you have to have items that grant you lifesteal. You also need the offensive perks that give you lifesteal, like leeching, or you need the base perks on a weapon, or you need something that already gives you lifesteal. So this on its own does nothing. It does nothing on its own unless you have leeching. So it is forcing you to go into a leech build by putting this in. If you put this in your gear, then all other effects that you could be getting benefits from, it does nothing. The only benefit you get is if you're doing a leech build. Okay. PvP, as say like a Marauder Bruiser, would bump this up. Okay. But as a PvE tank, your damage output is not high enough for really to set yourself up on a specific leeching build. Okay. Catacombs, if you're not tanking and you're doing DPS Catacombs, 100% that's going to be an S. But if you're PvE tanking, I'm saying it's a B. 100%. Okay. Next up is Sacred. Sacred gives you 6.5% outgoing healing efficiency. You're not the healer. You're the tank. You're the tank. They're like, any one of these would be better than that. Like, I mean, unless you're in, like, even if you're in your flail and you're using some utility like some of the group heal on your flail as a tank, you're not putting a whole lot of points into focus. So, like, your healing outgoing efficiency is already dog crap, as a tank. So why improve dog crap to stinkier dog crap? Makes zero sense. So, yeah, Sacred. Unfortunately, you are a D. Instead of do not use, we're going to rename D as dog crap. It's dog crap. Dog doo doo. Next up is going to be Grit Ward. So this stacks 5 times as well, gives you 2.2% reduced damage taken while under the effects of grit. Believe it or not, boom, that's going to be an A, and it's actually going to be higher up in A. Here's why. It requires you to have a build that applies grit. Okay? Or be using a weapon type that applies grit. Because they changed how Constitution works and the bubbles we get for applying grit, you're going to be applying grit far less often. You have to have like unmovable boots, or you have to have something gear specific. For example, if you are a great sword tank, this goes up to S. Because during your heavy attacks, if you have the Defiance stance, during your heavy attacks, you gain grit. And during your heavy attacks, you have a block. So while you're in grit and you have grit during your heavy swings, you're getting 5 times 2.2, which is 11% direct damage reduction. So greatsword tanks, S. Other tanks, unless you have a specific grit application, it would be S. If you don't have specific grit application, it's just down in A. Because most builds have some sort of grit. But like I said, if you are a greatsword tank, that's going to be an S. Okay? Because that's 11% reduced damage. And that's global damage. That's not a specific damage. It's not like physical aversion or elemental aversion. That is global damage. Okay? So Grit Ward is high A. But like I said, if you have a greatsword and you're a greatsword specific tank, that's going to be an S. So build specific gives you an A. Next up, Enchanted Ward. Enchanted Ward 2. We're going to move here. We're going to move it here, just behind Alchemist. So, Enchanted Ward as a base perk, not a charm perk, but Enchanted Ward in the base perk, you should always save it. Build something off of it, okay? Whether it's light, medium, or heavy. Enchanted Ward is your best damage reduction in the entire game, because the way the game is coded, attacks are dealt in either light or heavy attacks. And Enchanted Ward reduces damage from light and heavy attacks. The problem is you cannot stack the charm on top of a base perk. So you can't have, say 4% or 3.5% or 3% Enchanted Ward on a base perk and then add the 2% from the charm. Okay, you can't do that. But because of the nerfs that they did, say you have 5 pieces of gear that has Enchanted Ward, right? Your helm, your chest, your gloves, your pants, and your boots have Enchanted Ward. And we'll even say a shield. Say the shield has Enchanted Ward. So your total is 18% reduction of light and heavy attacks. If you put 5 of these charms in, say, your jewelry, or, well, I guess you would only get 3 in the jewelry. So that would give you 6%. You'd be at a 24% reduction. Okay, so you're still getting a direct damage mitigation from the charm that works on all builds. So that's going to give it an S tier. Okay. In my opinion, though, this is my opinion, the reason why it's not ahead of the income and healing from a healer is because if I have 5 slots available, right, and I go for and I go for the Enchanted Ward, that means that I'm taking 2 slots of the base perk Enchanted Ward away, because I cannot combine Enchanted Ward charm with Enchanted Ward base perk, which means I'm removing a higher percentage Enchanted Ward to put in a lower 2% percentage. Right? Now, say for example you have a weapon or a shield that doesn't have the base perk of Enchanted Ward, but has everything else you want, has a damage absorption, has everything else, and has a defensive slot, and you're like, hey, I already have 5 divine in, and my outgoing or my incoming healing's already at max. Should I put Enchanted Ward in it? But do not replace a piece of gear with a base enchanted ward with a lesser enchanted ward and think that you're doing better damage mitigation, because you are not. Okay, so it is S, but S situational S, but not not build specific, but situational specific, but it still gives you an S. Okay. Next up is potent vivacity. Increase the potency of all energized status effects on you by 15%. It's not a D because it's not like you'll never use it, but in reality, energized status effects on you by 15%. Any one of these other perks would give you a better defensive profile as a PvE tank than worrying about potent vivacity. So it's not a D because you can get some use on it, but it's definitely not a B, an A, and it's sure as hell not an S. So, yeah. I don't know. I would choose elsewhere for sure. All right, so next up is potent energy. All right, so this one stacks only 3 times. It decreases the potency of all exhaust statuses on you by 15%. I'm going to put it in B. So the potency of exhaust status is stam regen rate, movement speed, and that's really it for a PvE tank. So although it stacks 3 times and you can get 45% reduction on those things, most of the time it's the duration of the exhaust that you care about more so than the potency of the status effects on you from exhaust. Okay, so this doesn't reduce the duration of exhaust, it just reduces the potency of what exhaust does to you. So, and by the time that, you're cycling your cooldowns and your things like that, your stand bar should be back up anyways. Okay, especially if you're in a build where spear, you can use cyclone and boom, get your stand rate back up. You can use your great sword if you're a great sword user. You can use not calamity. I think it's calamity counter. Or you can also use the thrust. I'm blanking on the name of it all of a sudden, but you can use that to regain your stam, right? So I'm going to put it in B. Has some value, but there are way better perks to consider than potent energy. Okay. Next up, purifying toast. Purifying toast, it can only be stacked once. I'm going to go with C. Because, you know what? I'm going to give it a low B. Yes, you lose 1 debuff. Now, you know what? Fuck it. Screw it. Sorry. I'm going to go back down to C. Here's why. The cooldown on your pots is so long that if you're taking away like a defensive charm slot to try and lose 1 debuff every like 20 seconds when your pot is up, talk about being inefficient with the use of your charm slots. So, sorry, Purifying Toast. I'm going to give you a C. You're not a D because it does do something. It does do something. It just doesn't do everything very well. Okay? All right, next up is wellness. I was going to give it an S minus, A plus. Okay, this is one I want to hear from you guys on. Wellness increases your max health by 2%. The thing is wellness has an unlimited stack. Unlimited stack. So it doesn't stop at 5 stacks. You could have wellness in every single piece of gear. You can have wellness in your 6 slots of armor, including a shield, and 3 slots of jewelry. So 9 slots total, giving you an 18% increase to max health. Having a bigger, larger health pool, not a bad idea. And the thing is because they nerfed the way con is done with us and our stats in general, increasing your max health is really good. The thing is you cannot stack wellness 2 with base wellness. And you'll notice a lot of the older gear that's still really good already comes with wellness. So if you have a piece of gear that already has wellness, then honestly, it'd be better to go with one of these 4 perks over specifically wellness. But the thing is it's not like you have to specifically go for 5 stacks, or it's unlimited stacks. So if you find yourself after you've put in the defensive perks up here, and you're like, you know what, I have some extra defensive slots. Physical version is not really for me. Elemental version, I've got that taken care of. What should I put in there? Throw in wellness. So we're gonna say it's an S. Nah, A++. We're gonna go A++. It's seriously borderline. It's a SA. It's a S. It's like right here, SA. Right? Put in the comments though if you disagree. If you think it should be S, by all means. Like, I would probably agree with you just by even saying, I just think it's better. And I'd be like, yeah, you're probably right. Like, wellness is good. It's really good for all builds. It's just, to me, it's one of those, if you have some extra defensive charm spot, it's probably the best thing to throw in there, just to throw in there. Because you can't go wrong with having a bigger health pool. Okay. All right. Next and last of the defensive is Keenly Fortified. Keenly Fortified. Gain 19% Fortify for 5 seconds on critical hit. S+. Now, keep in mind, this only stacks one time. You only need 1 defensive charm slot and throw this in and then forget about it. Boom. It's in there. It's done. And you get 19% Fortify for 5 seconds on critical hit. Now, it does have a 7-second cooldown. But the thing is if you say, we'll just say Accelerated Resolve. We're in our Sword and Shield. Okay. So a little story time here. So say you're in your Sword and Shield. This procs, because you crit so much in Sword and Shield. This procs, you get 19% Fortify for 5 seconds. During that 5 seconds, you happen to use Accelerated Resolve on the 5th second, or the 4.5 second before this thing goes into a cooldown. Not only will the fortification from your Accelerated Resolve stack on top of the 19%. So say you get a 30% Fortify from Accelerated Resolve. You use that Accelerated Resolve on the 4th second after your crit proc on the Fortify. You now have 49% for the duration of the Accelerated Resolve's Fortify. By then, this perk will hit the 7th second cooldown while that fortification is active on the Accelerated Resolve. So by the time that Accelerated Resolve kicks down, you're probably going to crit again, giving you 19% fortification. Now, it's not going to stack 49 and 19 together. It's just going to replace that 19 and 30 together, so where you maintain a 49% fortify. By then, your Accelerated Resolve is off cooldown, and you hit it again. You refresh the cooldown of the fortify. You don't refresh the cooldown of the requirement for a crit, but you refresh the cooldown or the duration of the actual fortify itself. So you will pretty much have a 100% uptime of those 2 stacking fortifies. Now, say you have another skill that also does fortify. Say you use Accelerated Resolve, then you immediately swap, say on the 4th second again, to say Crowded Bludgeon on a flail, and you get the fortify from that. Guess what? It also stacks. So now you're getting like a 60% fortify, uptime 100%. So Keenly Fortified is S freaking plus, because, and here's the other reason. You'd be like, well, I'm not a crit build. Wrong, because it's not a specific crit damage threshold. All you need is 1 instance of crit damage, whether it's a light attack, a heavy attack, or an ability to proc this. If you are a Sword and Shield user, which is one of the best tanking setups right now, and you'll see in my video over the weekend for best in slot tank build, Sword and Shield has innate high crit chance already. You will have a 100% uptime of fortification 24/7, 3 days a week. No, 24/7, 365. There you go. See, got that all cattywampus. Okay. So that's going to be our defensive charm perks. Okay. Now let's talk about offense perks. And this one's going to go a little faster. I know there's a bunch of them, but a lot of these are together. Okay. Fire harnessing, ice harnessing, lightning harnessing, void harnessing, nature harnessing, arcane harnessing, slash harnessing, strike harnessing, and thrust harnessing. All these are an increase to the type of damage that is of that effect. We're going to go A. And keep in mind, this is for PvE tanking. So we're going to throw all these harnessings. Okay, I think I got them all in there. Okay, these are all going to be A. The reason being is all of these are build specific. If you put flame harnessing and you don't do any fire damage, wasted perk. But if you're using, for whatever reason, if you're wanting a tank with like a fire attuned weapon, right, this will increase the overall damage of that attunement. The thing is these harnessings have an unlimited stack. It's not like you can stack in every piece of your gear harnessing, and it's just going to overall increase the damage of that attunement or that damage type by that percentage. Okay, OP as hell. The reason why this is going to be an A is, one, it's build specific. Two, say I'm running a slash and I'm a sword and shield user, but my offhand is a hammer. My hammer's not going to benefit from slash. My hammer's going to benefit from strike. So in reality, unless I'm running sword and shield and greatsword, then slash would be much higher up. Probably A+, if not S-, right? But if I have two different types of weapons, like if I have a sword and shield and a flail and shield, my flail gets no benefit from the slash increased damage. Okay, so that's why it's an A, is it's build specific and it's that damage type specific. But another reason why it's A, not B, C, or D, is having extra damage. Anytime you can increase your damage, you're going to increase your threat generation, which is going to help you maintain aggro. Okay, and that's important. You don't want mobs bouncing off you and going after your DPS and healers, because then they're going to get super upset. Okay, next up is enchanted. Enchanted means light and heavy attacks deal 2.3% increased damage. S. Anytime you can put enchanted on weapons, or you can put enchanted in gear, it max stack of 5. So it's an overall 11.5% max increase of all light and heavy attacks. Every one of your attacks is either light or heavy. So whether you're using a hammer or you're using a sword and shield, this affects both weapons. Both weapons are affected by this. So that is superior to these. Enchanted is superior to these because it affects both weapons, not just one weapon type. Okay. But it does have a 5-stack cap. These ones don't, but it's not specific to the attunement. Okay. So it is S. That is SSS. Skilled enchantment is next. Abilities deal 1.5% extra damage. I'm going to put this, still in the A. The reason being, most of your abilities aren't really meant for dealing extra damage. Your abilities are meant for threat generation as far as taunts. If you have taunts activated, right? Either Carnelians or you have like the old stopwatch or something, right? So the ability damage, yes, it does have an increase. It does have a place. It does stack though at 5. Meaning the abilities will only increase 7.5% at max stacks. In my opinion, I think because you do a lot more heavy and light attacks than you do abilities, This, if between the two, I would put enchanted in before I put it enchanted, skilled enchantment. This would be better for like, you know, a fire star, a mage, somebody that is ability focused. They'd want skilled enchantment over just light and heavy attacks, because they're less using their light and heavy attacks. They're more using their skills, okay, for their overall damage. So that's why we're putting that. It's still viable, but it's not like, not between the two. I would definitely take enchanted over skilled enchantment. Okay. Next up is vicious. 3% critical damage. B. So although it does increase your damage output when you get a crit, it's only when you get a crit, right? And yes, you do have quite a bit of crit on like sword and shield users, but the thing is, it can only stack 5 times, so it's a 15% critical damage, but it still requires a proc. And the thing is there's still, more often than not, and better increased damage having enchanted than vicious. The crit damage isn't really what we're concerned with. We want the crit to proc, just the crit chance to proc our keenly fortified, and we want the crit chance just to increase the damage enough to maintain aggro. We're not DPS though. We don't care about the extra crit damage. We care about getting extra crits in general. Okay? Which leads us into keen. 4% extra crit chance. We'll put that up in A. I'm going to put that up in A. Reason being, you can stack this 5 times, giving you a 20% increase to crit. If you can constantly crit, you're doing a higher damage output, higher threat generation, and you're constantly proccing your fortify. Constantly. And you're constantly refreshing the fortify applied with the stacks of fortify. So extra crit chance, very, very, very good. Very, very good. But it is build specific. If you are doing a weapon that hardly ever crits, then you know what? Actually, I'm dropping that up in the S, dude. Because even then, if you have a weapon that hardly ever crits, it'd be good to have an extra 20% crit chance. More likely you're going to crit. So there you go. We literally talked ourselves into bumping that one up. Next up, Vorpal. 4% headshot damage. Nobody gives a crap about you, Vorpal, if you're a PvE tank. Well, how are you doing headshot damage if you're melee? Unless the boss is down on the ground and you're bonking him in the head like Echidna or something. Even then, like, that's very, very... You're not DPS. You're not ranged DPS. You're not DPS. Not for you. Next up, Rogue. Okay, Rogue is 3.6% backstab damage. You're always facing the boss because the boss is supposed to always be facing you. You will never proc this. So don't even bother. Give that to your little DPS pokers that like to poke the boss in the back. You know what I'm saying? You know how those DPS are. I know how those DPS are. All right, that brings us into penetrating backstab. Also, D, this is PvP only. Backstabs penetrate 8% of a player's armor, so you get back shots. I just went there. Yeah, cool. But as a tank, you're always facing the front of them. You're rarely ever facing their back. And that's for PvP anyways. So, boom, there you go. And we're talking about PvE tanking here, not PvP backshotting. Anyways, penetrating headshot, same thing, PvP only, and it's also headshots, and all it does is penetrate 7% of their armor. Does not, doggy doo-doo, does not affect us in PvE tanking. Next up is Poisoning 2. Base duration of poisons you apply lasts 16% longer. They're irrelevant to us as a tank. We don't really do any poison builds. And extra length of duration, useless for us. Useless for us as PvE tanks. We are not the DPS. Okay. Bloodletting. Base duration of bleeds you apply lasts 16% longer. Believe it or not, I'm going to put that in B. The reason being is a lot of your slash weapons and a lot of your weapons can apply a bleed, and a lot of weapons come with like keenly jagged on them, where every crit you get causes a bleed. This can stack 5 times. That is a 40% increase, or a 90% increase to, not 90%, it's 85% increase to, am I messing up my math here? 30, 50, 80%. Oh my gosh, my brain is fried today. For long week of work. 80% increase to the length of a bleed. If you stack 5 of them, there's still better options. But if you have 5 extra slots, not a bad idea if you have keenly jagged. Okay. Next up is burning 2. Base duration of burns you apply lasts 16% longer. I'm gonna put that here just because same idea. If you have some sort of flame damage, like flame attunement, then that would be relevant. If you don't have flame attunement, let's put it in B. If you have flame attunement, that would be relevant. If you don't have flame attunement, then irrelevant. So we'll keep it as a B. It's gear specific. Next up is going to be crippling. Base duration of slows you apply lasts 16% longer. This is going to be a B. The reason being is that's better for PvP than PvE. Okay. Us applying slows to the bosses, unless like we're trying to help our team group up mobs, but even then we're trying to attract them to us. The slows are kind of irrelevant. Okay. Let somebody else cripple. Now, enfeebling stacks 5 times. Base durations of weaken you apply lasts 16% longer. There are quite a lot of ways for us to weaken the enemy. Specifically, if you're using Power Stone, the flail, both your weapons are constantly applying a weaken to the boss or your target. This will basically keep a 80% uptime per weaken you apply. Not too shabby. The reason why it's not S is 1, it's gear specific, and 2, most of the time you're above 90% health, you're keeping a 100% uptime on your weaken already. So I would venture to say, like, I might even put that in a B, a high B, a very high B, just because, like I said, you already keep your weakens up pretty high. The only time I would slot this is if I notice that my weakens are falling off before my next weaken applies, which if I don't have a weaken build, it's probably not likely. Okay. Next up is infected. Base duration of diseases you apply lasts 16% longer. Honestly, it's kind of in the same boat. If you have like plague crits or something like that where you're applying disease on crit, then this would move up and it would be a little bit better. But unless the boss has some sort of self-heal mechanic or damage check where they're healing, or a mutation where they get healed by the mutation, whatever, this is not really going to be that relevant to PvE. PvP, whole different story. PvE not as relevant. Okay, empowered. Empowered will always be an S tier. It stacks 5 times. The empower you apply will last 12% longer. The longer you can maintain a max 50% threshold of empower, the better. If you can always stay at 50% and you have something that will basically give you a 60% extra uptime on every empower you apply, you'll constantly be at your 50% cap. Like, the more damage you can do and the more empowerment you have, the more threat generation you have, the overall utility you are as far as applying some sort of extra damage to the boss you're fighting, always a good thing. So empower, S tier. Next is alacrity. Haste you apply lasts 12% longer. We're actually going to put that as a B because we're talking about PvE tanking, right? If I'm comparing these to like hasted vigor, then yeah, like obviously I'm going to increase the amount of haste I apply with all 5 stacks with 60%. But the thing is there's better better offensive perks that will help me tanking more so than applying haste or the length of haste. So we're going to put that down in B. Next up is leeching. This stacks 5 times. It gives 4% damage or 4% of the damage you deal does health back. It heals you. Okay. But it doesn't trigger off of persistent damage or dot. So if you have a constant ticking dot of flame on somebody, you're not getting the lifesteal from that dot. It's only from your base damage that you're applying, or your ability damage, not dot damage. Now, where does this apply? It's build specific. Build specific. It is a great perk for some self-sustain. It is a great perk for self-sustain, especially if you combine that with the increase to leeching, right? And the increase to life steals. If you have this one, if you're using the increase to lifesteal stacks, you'd want this with it. Make sense? Otherwise, if you're not doing a leeching build, then, you know, not that great. Catacombs, S. But regular PvE tanking, it's good. Throw it in there if you have some extra spots. You can't go wrong with it. It's not going to hurt your build. But unless you're building around leeching, which you're going to have a dedicated healer, it will help with self-sustain, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary. That's why I'm going to keep it as a A. Okay. Next up is Keenly Jagged. Keenly Jagged. Although it's build specific, it only takes, you can only stack it once. You can only have one Keenly Jagged in there. So if you have a lot of offensive slots, you're going to have space to throw in a Keenly Jagged. It's just extra damage, extra threat generation. Every crit, right? Every 7 seconds, right? You can crit. You get an extra 9% weapon damage per second for 6 seconds, meaning there is only a 1 second off time between the damage being dealt. So every 7 seconds, there's only 1 second that the boss is not going to be getting extra bleed. That's pretty good for only costing 1 charm slot. So I'm going to put that as an S. Okay. Especially because all it takes is 1 instance of crit damage. Has nothing to do whether it's a light attack or a heavy attack or an ability. It doesn't matter. Just like Keenly Fortified, all it takes is 1 instance of crit damage to proc, and boom, you're getting a 9% weapon damage tick for 6 seconds. Pretty dang good for only costing 1 charm slot. And then last up, Keenly Empowered. Keenly Empowered. I'd even put it above Keenly Jagged. Keenly Empowered. You can only put 1 in, okay? Only takes 1 charm, 1 stack charm. You get 13% Empower for 5 seconds on a critical hit with a 7-second cooldown. This will also refresh the length of empowers for your other empowers. So if you're at a 50% empower and it's about to fall off, and then you get a crit, it's going to give you that, keep that 50% empower, because you don't get 63% because you max at 50, but it'll refresh the length of the empowerment stack on you that you already have stacked up. Anytime, like I said, you can get above 50%, or you can maintain a 50% empowerment, because that's the cap, the better. Do it. And that only costs you 1 charm slot. 1 charm slot, and you will get that empowerment. Okay? All right. Like I said, if anybody has, like, you know, hey, you know, I think this might be better, that better. Like I said, put it down in the comments. This was just my take on what the current charm setup is. I didn't go into skill charms just because that's really going to be your build specific mentality. I'm not going to tell you, you know, like, oh, yeah, Sundering Shockwave is better than Mighty Gavel, when your whole build is built around Mighty Gavel and it's a really good build. Then you'd probably want to use the Gavel skill charm versus the Sundering Shockwave if you're not using Shockwave, right? So that's all going to be build specific. If you guys want, put in the comments, hey, can you actually do the skill charm tier list? And I will do that one too. I know this video went long, but there's a lot of information. I did not want to go into skill charms as well. We can save that for another video. So like I said, put down in the comments if you disagree with the list, and put down why though. Don't just say, I disagree, because honestly, nobody in the community is really going to read that and care. They're going to be like, oh, well, good for you. Why? No reason? Okay, well, bye. You know, whatever. So if you guys want some value out of this, we've been discussing a lot of this in our Discord. Discord's going to be in the description. Feel free to join. There's a lot of tanks in there. There's a lot of good discussion in there. We talk about all these kinds of things. We talk about our experience and, you know, what we're running and what we're testing out. And hey, this has been working for me. What's been working for you, right? It's a really cool community of people. And it's not just New World. There's a bunch of other gamers in there as well. So I invite you to the Discord. Like this video if you got some value. Stay tuned this weekend. I will be dropping my Season 10, what I consider to be right now, how Season 10, the current patch and how everything's running right now, what I consider to be the best in slot PvE tank build that's coming this weekend. I should have it out this weekend. Okay. So much love for all the love you guys giving me on this channel. I hope to see you guys in New World. See you guys next time. Make sure you say hi to your mom for me. All right. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.